Hello, welcome or welcome back to Sapling Tarot. My name is Imogen, and today I'm going to be working my way through the Tarot 5Ws tag by Brian Cormac Carr. I've loved watching a bunch of different responses to this already and wanted to contribute my own answers. I love how flexible he made this tag and that you could answer it really quickly by just answering 5 questions, or you could make it a little bit longer by answering various permutations of the questions. So I'm gonna jump right in. In primary school, I learned it as who, what, when, where, why at that speed, in that order. So I'm going to be following that order because otherwise I'm going to get myself confused. So the first question, the first W, is who. And in my notes, I have author, reader, creator, tarot tuber, and the 2 people that I wanted to mention, because if I start talking about tarot tubers, I will be here all day and that it will be all I talk about. I think I should probably do a video about all of the channels that I'm subscribed to and why I like them, and ask for more recommendations, because I could always watch more tarot videos. I mean, I shouldn't watch more tarot tube, but I could always, I would always like to watch more tarot tube. So I'm not going to talk about tarot tubers. So I'm going to talk about the creator of, I'm going to move my tea out of the way, the creator of the Tarot of the Divine, which is this central tarot deck here, which if you've watched any other videos, you are quite possibly sick of me talking about, because it's the deck that I take to event. It's the deck that I use for reading for others, and this is the deck that makes me question why I collect other tarot decks, because I should probably just use this one, since this is the one that I use professionally. But if you're on TarotTube, you know that is not a good enough reason to not have more decks, and so here we are. So the Tarot of the Divine was created by Yoshi Yoshitani. This is another one of the kind of accompanying things, and I'm having this in place of the Beneath the Moon collection of stories and folklore that they wrote, because I have that on ebook, and so that's not a particularly satisfying thing to show you. But I love that they did this deck. I love that all of the cards in this deck are based on myths and legends and folklore from around the world. I love stories. I love myths and legends and folklore, and I think the art style is incredible, but I also really appreciate the thought that's gone into allocating stories to the cards. And so it was really great that they wrote the book with all the stories in it, because it means that the stories that I didn't know, from cultures that I'm not familiar with, from parts of the world I've never been to or never studied, I was able to learn them, and it's really enriched my tarot practice and has made it a really beautiful experience to read with this deck, particularly for other people, because I can tell them the stories and they can see themselves in the stories, and it's just really beautiful. And so I wanted to mention this creator because I think that there are so many beautiful tarot decks out there, and there are so many beautiful tarot decks out there that have had an incredible amount of work and thought put into them by people who know the tarot inside out and who know whatever additional thing they're bringing into the deck inside out. But there are also a lot of beautiful tarot decks that don't have that thought put into them, and so you sit down to read with them and it just kind of rings a bit hollow, and like the person didn't really understand, and it's like a tarot deck that should have been an oracle deck or something, because it's like if you don't really know the tarot system and you just kind of go willy-nilly, attributing the gods and goddesses and stories and plants and animals to it, then it can just get really, it can either feel really empty or really messy. And this deck just doesn't feel like that, and I think the thought that has gone into it, there's like a jigsaw puzzle now, so they've really gone all in. I can't remember what publisher it is, Potter Books maybe, but yeah, they've really gone all in on there's like stickers on like the Tarot of the Divine collection. I'll admit I didn't love this book because I had the other book, and the other book has the stories in it rather than just kind of basic tarot symbolism, and I thought maybe it would have more to do with, I didn't realise it was like a workbook that you fill out and I mean, I don't ever fill out those kind of workbooks anyway, but I thought it would be about like why they chose the art that they did and the stories that they did, and like dig into the symbolism in the cards a bit more. And it doesn't really do that. It is more of a kind of beginner's guide to the Smith-Waite tarot system. So I was a little bit disappointed, but that doesn't really take anything from the creator. I think that's probably more of a like a publisher's trying to milk it for all it's worth thing, maybe. I mean, I don't know that, but it's kind of the impression that I get with this, and then the jigsaw and the stickers and stuff. I mean, I love stickers, and I would make stickers for everything I've ever had anything to do with, but yeah, it just it didn't really make any sense. Unlike the deck and unlike the book of stories, which I just think is incredible, and so anything this creator does now, I will be so invested, and so I just will be following their career with great interest. And so this was one of the tarot who's that I wanted to talk about. The other who is someone that I want to make a tarot deck, and it is Fez Inkright, and they have made 2 oracle decks, which I have. I have the mass market non-special edition versions of both the Seed and Sickle Oracle and the Citadel Oracle, and I love these decks so much. They were what really started me on the path of understanding the point of Oracle deck. I also have their books that they've written, the Folk Magic one and the Botanical Curses and Poisons one, so I have, to my knowledge, everything they've made. And I really love their writing style. I love the way their brain works. I just think that, I mean, the illustrations are unbelievable. Oh, this is upside down. I know I watched, was it Crescent Moon Tarot, say that they didn't like all of the hands in this deck. And I mean, now I'm not going to flip over. Oh, there we go, there's some hands. I didn't like all the hands. And I can kind of understand what they mean. There's another one. But I think this deck is genius. I love the archetypes idea. The world building in the teeny tiny Liminal 11 guidebook is just unreal. Like, the amount of thought and care and attention that has gone into this, I think, is just extraordinary. But yeah, so I think that if they wanted to, and they could work with, if they don't know the tarot, then I totally get it, but like, if they do, or if they could work with someone who does, then I think that it would be, I mean, just look at that. I just think it is so, like, the attention to detail and the quality of the artwork, and I mean, the limited colour palette just makes my heart sing. This was my first deck that's like gilded in any way, shape or form, and oh, I get it now. I get it now. You know, this made me understand why oracles were good, made me understand why gilding isn't just like annoying and flaky, and I get it. I get it now. And so yeah, so my 2 who's for people I'm keeping an eye out for, and people whose careers I will be following with great interest, are Yoshi Yoshitani and Fez Inkright, because I think that they have this combination of insight and skills that just make incredible creations. So the next W is what? And from my notes I have, what do you love? What's your most used? And then tools and techniques. And so I'm going to talk about what I love about tarot first, because that is easy. And I mean, I know I'm flicking through an oracle deck right now, but I just think it's really beautiful, and it'll give you something to look at while I waffle on. So I love that tarot is infinite. I love that you could be so invested in it for your whole life and still never really know all of it. Every time you do a reading, something new occurs to you, and I think that is delicious. I love all of the correspondences and about how you can go down any of these little kind of rabbit holes, whether it be astrology or psychology or other sorts of like mysticism, colour theory, numerology, and it's just so abundant with detail and nuance, and I think it's like the nerd's dream. Like you're never going to run out of stuff to learn because you can pivot and jump, and even if you feel like you know it all, you could just buy a different deck in a different system and you could kind of learn it all over again, because every deck will have a slightly different attitude and a different perspective, and every reader has a different perspective, creator has a different perspective, and it's just limitless. And while I can see how some people might find that overwhelming or intimidating, I just find it quite comforting to know that I could have, if my brain allows me, I could have this interest for the rest of my life and the well will never run dry. Things I love to do with tarot, I want to make a video response to a Rifflin Times recent video about how they use their decks, so I won't waffle on too much because otherwise I'll end up repeating myself. But I love reading for others. Reading for others is the most satisfying thing in the world. I mean, reading for yourself is pretty damn satisfying when you turn the cards over and they do that magical thing where you're like, oh yeah, you're inside my brain. How does that image in the external reality match so perfectly with my internal reality? And you can try and explain it in, all of the ways that you can try and rationalise it and stuff, and that is fun in its own way, but also is just really satisfying when you get that kind of congruence and like the uncanny thing happens. I like using it as like prompts for learning about people and connecting with people and having really deep conversations. I think tarot skips a lot of superficial stuff. You can do superficial tarot readings, divine your dinner, etc. What film shall I watch tonight? But I think where tarot really comes into its own is like in the nitty gritty, in like the kind of the messy and the tricky, and you can end up having conversations with yourself or with people or with decks that usually you wouldn't really be able to talk to people about, and I love that. I think that is absolutely magic. In terms of like methods and techniques, I've really like dabbling a bit in Lenormand in the last year, and that has really informed or kind of given me options with tarot reading. Someone that I work with alongside at some of the markets that I read at, and he, primarily, if not exclusively, read Lenormand. He calls them tarot readings, but he reads the Lenormand card, and I was just captivated. And then I know that Logan and Larkin Legend and Kelly Bear, and who else do I watch who dabble in Lenormand? Oh, I can't remember right now. But anyway, I know I saw other people, so I got myself a little deck in a tin, and I've loved learning about that and learning about the symbolism, and it's made me appreciate Pixie's artwork from the Smith-Waite Tarot all the more, and given me more options of ways to read the cards. Like particularly if I'm like struggling, I can start looking at things like in relation to like the positionings of other cards in sort of like a semi-tarot spread, and just kind of thinking about reading temporally. And I should learn Marseille and learn about like sequencing and positioning and stuff like that as well. But Lenormand has done a lot to inspire my readings recently. And yeah, I've talked about it before, but I largely read in 3, 5 and 10 card spreads, and the 10 cards is a Celtic cross because I learned from books that were written in the 90s, and I didn't know that people didn't like the Celtic cross, but it's how I learned and it's how my brain works, and I love it. Okay, so next one is when. When did you start taking it seriously? When did you last have a significant experience? And so, if you've watched other videos of mine, you may or may not know that I've been reading tarot for a really long time, relative to my age. I started when I was a young teenager and have sort of come back to it over and over again over the years. In terms of taking it seriously, I realised that it was You know, that kind of millennial thing of, I realised it was a hobby I could potentially monetise, which is the tragic reality of, I mean, life in 2024. I mean, this wasn't 2024, this was a fair few years ago now. And I realised that it was a hobby that I could potentially monetise and not learn to hate it. And so far, I have been correct. You know, we've also talked before on this channel about the fact that I am disabled, and so, you know, classic, typical work is not an option for me, and so I'm very much living a choose your own adventure, try and cobble something together kind of life. And so this was an avenue I decided to pursue, and I'm really grateful that I did. I started learning traditional systems. I started learning Smith-Waite system. I've done some Thoth study with the Tarot Association of the British Isles, and I have a Marseille deck that I will learn to use properly without the guidebook. I will, maybe this year, maybe not. We will see. I've been doing paid readings for getting on for 2 years, and I've been taking it I mean, I don't take anything seriously, in that I take everything seriously. I'm just, you know, a serious and sensitive and silly soul. I started charging for it about 2 years ago. I started taking it seriously about 3 years ago. I have been doing it for a long time. Last significant experience. I mean, most times I do like personal tarot readings. It's why I don't have a really rigid personal practice in terms of doing readings for myself, is because they rarely turn out light and fluffy. They often end up being quite significant and hard-hitting, and I'm just not always in the mood for that. So Juliet Diaz did a grief ceremony online a couple of months ago, and the cards I pulled during that were really significant, and I kept them up on my sort of like altar space for a long time, because they hit really deep and were very much something that I wanted to hold on to and keep going with, and persevere, and they helped me do that. Also, another significant experience, because apparently this is going to be another long video. At the last market that I did, I had a cynic, which I absolutely don't mind reading for. I myself am a cynic. I never believe that the tarot is going to work, and then it does, and I think that's kind of magical. But his partner had got him a reading, or paid for a reading, as a joke, and that is less fun, because truly, what are you supposed to do with that? I don't know how I'm supposed to read for someone who doesn't want to be there, but so I generally just started doing my kind of patter, explaining things. It was like, okay, do you know anything about tarot? Trying to explain it to him, working way through kind of my usual like patter of explaining it to someone who doesn't know anything about tarot. And he was kind of grunting, and his body language was all like turned away from me, and I was like, oh, what are we... It's your money, I mean your partner's money that you're wasting, but you know, I'm just going to push through, keep going. And I was explaining all the cards that I pulled, and suddenly I realised he's leaning forward a lot more, he's looking a lot more engaged, but also he is absolutely ashen. His face has gone like this colour, kind of whitey, pucey green. And I do the question of, oh, you know, how is this all feeling? You know, is this making sense? Do you need anything else explained? Just very, very quietly goes, no, that's exactly what's happening in my life at the moment. No, that's exactly it. And I say, oh, okay, and you know, I keep going, explaining a bit more, going into a bit more depth. Kind of asking some questions, and I'm getting monosyllabic answers, until eventually he just pushes himself away from the table, gets up and walks away. And so that is, like I was saying, sometimes I don't believe that the tarot is going to do its thing, and it does it anyway. I love that it does that, and I love that even if you don't believe in it, if you're still participating in a tarot reading, there is every chance it's going to do the spooky thing, and suddenly your whole life is going to be depicted on the table. So that was a significant experience in a less emotional way and more of a fun, slightly mean way. Okay, home stretch. Where do you do your readings? I usually do them on my bed, if I'm honest. If I'm reading for myself, or if I'm doing like an email reading or something, then I'll do them on my bed. There's more space. I can, you know, flatten out a nice piece of fabric and take a photo, and yeah, that works for me. If I'm doing a video reading, I'll do it here at my desk. But often, like, the most readings I've ever done have been out at markets, particularly the Leith Witchcraft Market in Edinburgh, which I highly recommend. It's the loveliest group of people. You absolutely don't need to come and have a reading by me, but I'd recommend getting a reading from someone whether that's palmistry or I think someone does runes, there's someone who does like a wine tasting tarot reading thing. It's amazing. And there are loads of people who do all sorts of incredible crafts and artwork, and they're just the loveliest bunch of people. It's so great. And yeah, and then also I was going to show you like my storage situation, but I have all of my decks out. Well, not all of them, but like a good chunk of my decks out for filming another video, and so everything is an absolute chaos. So I don't think I'll show you that, unless I have a bit of B-roll of when it was last tidy. And then the final question is why? Why do you love it? I think I've explained. Why do you study? Why is it important? And the notes I have are, there's always something to learn, and we discussed that. You know, it blends things that I love, like psychology and philosophy and magic and folklore. And I study it because I enjoy studying things. I'm a weird little nerd, but I feel like it brings me closer to people. It makes me more understanding and compassionate and empathetic to the kind of things that people are always going through, and the fact that we all have all 78 of these cards within us at any one time and throughout a life. And I think also like the tarot community, so the witchcraft community in Edinburgh that I've become a part of, and the online tarot tube community, like we're all in the nicest possible way, and I do mean this as a compliment. If you knew me personally, you'd know that I do mean this as a compliment. We are just all a little bit weird. I love that we can get so nerdy, and I do mean like this side of like kind of deck and card and study side of tarot YouTube, rather than the is my ex going to come back side of tarot YouTube, which, you know, has its own place for, you know, comfort and whatever, but this side, I think it's just such a lovely group, and I'm so grateful to be even just like a little part of it. And, you know, tags like this and asking these kinds of questions, I think it's the most incredible way. I mean, like I was saying before about how you skip all the superficial stuff, really, don't you? You go straight in at the deep end with, so tell me, how do you feel about death? When you have a death card in your deck, do you want it to be like, death? Do you want it to be more like, transformation? Do you want a happy mixture of both? You know, talking about, you know, like representation in tarot decks, you know, all of these sorts of the nitty and gritty of it all, and I think it's just such an amazing vehicle for community, you know. There we go. Just all of us little nerds nerding out together about, you know, cardstock and imagery and tuck boxes versus liminal 11 weird magnetic whatever things, and people bringing in astrology, or people going purely psychological, or people getting spiritual with it, and I just think it's really magic, and so that's why I love it, and what I love, because I don't really know the difference between those two questions. But yeah, so here we are. My tea has gone cold. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate you. I hope you're taking really good care of yourself, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!